It's been 3 months since I planted these citrus trees in the Vego Garden self-watering citrus tree planters, and today I want to give you an update. I see so many questions about the specific tree sizes and what we should be transplanting into this 30-gallon container. So let's walk through the trees one by one. I also want to cover fertilizer while we do it. This is my 1-gallon Meyer lemon tree that I transplanted in here. I got the tree just from my local Home Depot, and this one is doing really well. You can see it's blooming already. It's probably going to produce some lemons. It is a young tree, so I am expecting some of the young fruit to drop, but it's looking really good. The leaves are looking really healthy. Look at all of those blooms. There's so many of them. I'm so excited. You guys got to tell me what I should do with the Meyer lemons. Should I bake something? Some kind of pie? Look at the healthy leaves. They're loving this planter. I'll share my fertilizer regimen in a minute, but I think the big concern about this one, or the big question that I get from people, is whether or not it's a good idea to transplant a small 1-gallon tree into this big 30-gallon planter. And I can now safely say that it seems to have no issue with it. Normally, I think the concern is root rot when you up pot too fast and into too large of a container. But the soil mix is really going to be key here. I shared the soil mix in my last video about these planters, but basically you've got to make sure it's well aerated, because yes, the soil is going to be moist all the time, and to prevent root rot you need to be able to keep some oxygen around the roots too. So the mix is about 2 bags or 1.5 bags of Happy Frog potting soil, probably about 16 quarts of perlite, and then 2 bags of orchid bark. I went with orchid bark because I couldn't really source pine bark fines. Pine bark fines would be another good option as well, or maybe pumice. Now, let's look at this tree too. We're going to get to that sad looking one in a minute. This is the key lime. The key lime, this was the 5-gallon key lime that I planted in here. And it's looking really nice as well. It's starting to get some really small blooms. I think I might bring the camera over here and zoom in on those. But it might, I'm not sure if it's going to keep these or if it's going to drop these. It's getting very few, but they are there. And the leaves look really healthy, and the tree's doing well. Okay, this is the key lime. Can you see this tiny little fruit right here that's starting? There's another flower bud right here. And then new growth leaves right here. The plant looks very healthy. Leaves look great. This is a Meiwa Kumquat. I think this was a 10-gallon when I bought it, or maybe I'm getting the sizes mixed up between these two. I think this was the biggest and most expensive one, was the Meiwa Kumquat. I got this tree at my local Rockledge Gardens, as well as the key lime. I also got that one there. It's my local nursery. I'm in Melbourne, Florida. And this is the Meiwa Kumquat. I picked Meiwa instead of Nagami because I've heard Meiwa is just a better flavor. So I'm excited about all the kumquats you can see on here. I have covered a lot of them in this little mesh organza bag to protect them, because I was noticing they were getting kind of pecked at by the birds, and they were kind of breaking the seal on the skin. So I wanted to protect them from that. They're looking really good. I can't wait to try my first Meiwa Kumquat. This one though, I have noticed that some of the leaves on the lower interior of the tree are turning yellow, and well, I think I'm going to monitor before I do anything about it. I mean, I'll keep up with my current fertilizer regimen, but because the tree is producing so many kumquats right now, I think it may just be deprioritizing the leaves, and it's just some natural aging of these lower interior leaves. And the kumquats look great. The new growth looks great in dark, healthy green. So I'm not too concerned about it, but I am going to watch out for it. Here's a good view where you can see like a more mature, larger kumquat up here that's growing. Well, maybe I'm blocking it. Yeah, this is a larger one. And then you can see some of these new flowers, fresh new flowers, and you can see other kumquats at various stages of growth. This tree is going to have a long fruiting cycle, which is something I was really excited about. And again, here's another like new growth for the leaves. And this tree over here, can you see this one? Yes, so this one looks a little bit sad, but don't worry, it's actually really happy because it was almost dead. One of my neighbors nearby had left this one outside to see if anybody wanted it. It's a jaboticaba, so it's not a citrus tree, but I put it in the citrus tree planter. And so if you're not familiar with a jaboticaba, it's going to grow these grape-like fruits on the stem of the tree. And this plant was almost dead from root rot. All the leaves were brown. All the leaves eventually fell off, but these are all healthy, green, new growth leaves. So it is coming back. I consider it a win, even though it doesn't look too great on camera today. This is also the Gen 3 self-watering citrus tree planter, so we've got this watering port right here, which is a really nice addition. It helps you fill up the water right here while you can simultaneously watch the gauge over here. I want to point out what's been happening down at the bottom. If you recall how this is set up, there's a reservoir inside that kind of, like the top of the reservoir is about here. Overflow drain is probably right about there. And so I'm seeing some of this accumulate on the outside of the planter. And I just want to reassure you that you can just wash it off. You might need a little bit of a brush or something to help get it off. But this happens on my elevated planter too. It's just, you know, you've got some overflow water, but it's not perfectly clean water, right? It's been in contact with the soil and some nutrients and stuff, so that's all that is. You can wash it off. If you're really picky about this small part, I would just probably get a brush and get that off. But this is something that recurringly happens. And I'm not too concerned about it, but I wanted to raise your awareness to it. So after 3 months of planting these, I feel confident that they're probably through the transplant phase, or if they're still at the very tail end of the transplant phase, I can still assess and tell that a 1-gallon tree is just fine in this 30-gallon planter, a 5-gallon tree is just fine, or 10-gallon, and a 5-gallon. They're all doing really well. Now let me show you the fertilizer regimen I've been doing. When we're talking about fertilizing a self-watering planter, you might have some questions about whether you should be doing a top dress granular fertilizer or a liquid fertilizer, and if it's liquid, are you putting it in the reservoir or are you pouring it straight into the soil? To be honest, these are questions that I also have, and I don't really think that there's a great resource out there that dictates how, or that instructs you on how to properly fertilize in a self-watering container. So I'm going to share what I've done and some things to think about, and we'll go from there. So I have chosen to go with granular fertilizer. This is the one I've been using. It's called Sunnyland Citrus, Avocado, and Mango Fertilizer. And the NPK numbers are 646. And what I like about this one is that it also has a lot of micronutrients in it. I've noticed that citrus trees need a lot of micronutrients. And so the way that I applied it to the planters was mixing it into like the top 1 inch of soil. I didn't want to mix it all throughout because if you think about the self-watering planter, you have the reservoir at the bottom, then you have the soil that's basically directly in contact with the water, and that soil is going to stay very dense, very moist. And as you move up the planter and up the soil column, it generally is, you're going to encounter soil that dries out a little bit more. So that top layer of soil is your driest portion of soil. And so I think that's probably a safer area to put fertilizer, especially like a granular fertilizer that's somewhat activated on water, right? A water soluble fertilizer. Another one that I see a lot of people use on citrus trees is Osmocote Plus. And so I bought this, but I haven't used it on these plants. I used it on a new tree line of podocarpus that I did on the side of my house. And this is really nice because it is, I think, polymer coated, and it's a very controlled release. So I might try this one, but I mean, right now I'm not going to change anything because everything is working well, but maybe in a year I might switch to Osmocote or do some kind of experiment about the fertilizer. Now, you might notice that neither one of these are organic. They are synthetic, or at least partially synthetic. The citrus fertilizer it's derived from polymer-coated urea, some diammonium phosphate, biosolids, sulfate of potash. So some of it's, natural ingredients, and some of it are synthetic ingredients. If you want to use a strictly organic granular fertilizer, that's where the moisture might impact the speed of the release a little bit more. Because it's not polymer coated, it's really going to be based on the microbial activity in your soil and how much moisture is in your soil. And so I might try that someday, but right now I'm just going to keep going with the Sunnyland granular fertilizer. Now, I have also been supplementing with a foliar feed because I've noticed, well, when I first bought my very first citrus tree from Rockledge Gardens, they gave me a printout and it had what's called witch's brew, a recipe for a foliar feed that you should do every 2 weeks. And the foliar feed is going to protect from some insects that might be causing the citrus greening disease, so the Asian citrus psyllid, to control the population of the citrus psyllids around your trees. You're going to want to use some kind of insecticide. Like the witch's brew recipe that I use includes Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. So that's what I've been using. I'll give you the exact measurements in a moment. And I also use the Southern Ag Citrus Nutritional Spray. So it's specifically made for citrus, avocados, mangoes, and other tropical fruits. And it also includes a lot of micronutrients. And I think from my own personal experience, I feel that foliar nutritional sprays, especially micronutrients, get absorbed so much better by the plant. And then we also have a Genesis product. Well, it just helps, honestly, there's not a lot of use about, basically I think it's a surfactant. So this is a surfactant, surfactant. So this is going to help the nutritional spray adhere to the leaves of your plant. And then also I do include a liquid seaweed sometimes, a Maxicrop liquid seaweed. This stuff is great, but one word of caution, be really careful with it depending on what surface you're on. When I first bought my first bottle of this, I had it in the back of my car, like in the trunk space of my Suburban. And when I got home and I opened up the trunk, this fell out of the trunk and it spilled all over my paver driveway. I was able to pick it up and I still had like half the bottle. So it wasn't a total waste, but the more important thing was the stain it made on my paver driveway. I had to sit there and do several rounds of a cleaning product on the pavers to get it out. So be really careful about where you're using that Maxicrop seaweed. And the way that I mix it up is in one of these sprayers. These are available at any of your local big box store. So I usually get mine when I go to Home Depot. The Witch's Brew recipe, I just went ahead and stuck it on here with a label maker so that I wouldn't have to pull up my phone or anything when I'm ready to do it. And so per 1 gallon of water, I use 4 tablespoons of Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew, 2 tablespoons of the Citrus Nutritional Spray, 1 tablespoon of Genesis, and periodically I'll add the liquid seaweed for 2 tablespoons too. And then sometimes I'll add a copper fungicide, 4 teaspoons. But I would be really careful with copper fungicide because you really have to follow the instructions on the label for copper fungicide. You don't want to over apply, especially on a foliar speed. Well, especially on a foliar feed, because with a copper fungicide, if you're going to get that dripping wet leaf and it's dripping into the soil, if you apply too much copper fungicide, it's going to accumulate in your soil and your plants will show some detrimental side effects with too much copper in your soil. So definitely be careful about that. I only do it maybe like a handful of times a year, maybe like 2 or 3 times a year I might add the copper fungicide in there. So all the trees look like they're really healthy and thriving in this self-watering citrus tree planter. But I really think the key is that soil mix to keep the soil nicely aerated. Make sure you're mixing in a lot of perlite and something like pine bark fines or orchid bark. And then, you know, fertilize on schedule, because citrus really needs a lot of fertilizer. It needs a lot of nutrients and micronutrients to do well. And if you're interested in picking up one of these planters, I'm going to drop a link in the description box below and probably in a pinned comment. And I'll share a few of my discount codes as well so you can get a discount on them. I love these planters. I think my only issue is trying to figure out where I would put any more if I got any more of them. But if you guys have this planter and you have questions about what's going on in your plant or going on with your tree, or maybe you have questions and you're thinking about getting one, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.